we all make, and we all run into obstacles, and we all have successes and failures, and they are a lot more alike than different. That's what I think. And that's why I really like Panchasila, because I think all of those traditions in Panchasila principle number 1, they all are wisdom traditions, and all of them were developed by people who saw these patterns in human nature and human experience. And they all tried to tell stories about people who made good decisions in relation to that type of situation or did not. And then they're telling stories. They're trying to teach us. So in the modern world, the modern Western Enlightenment, during the scientific revolution, there was an effort to completely overthrow these traditions and to call them religions and anti-science. So it was set up as anti-science. But in the 21st century, there, with quantum physics, starting with Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead, when Einstein replaced the Newtonian worldview, we have a whole different way of thinking. Well, Einstein understood that that Buddha, Muhammad, Socrates, Jesus, that these people have insights that were really important. Einstein himself was a monist. He thought there was such a thing as God. He referred to that word, but it was very, very broad. And so, and then Whitehead said also that based on this new view, which is organic, it's not mechanistic, it's not materialistic, reducing things to data, it's not mechanistic, making everything into a machine, it's actually organic. So the Einstein's view was going to reintroduce. So there are a number of intellectuals who think this is brand new, but that's because they were told that all those old traditions are backward, primitive, ignorant. And it's they were wrong. They just don't even know, because they never were educated. They never were taught that these traditions have a lot of insight. And so when they come along and say, oh, now we have the organic view and it's systems thinking and cutting edge, then I go, wait a second, these guys were not so stupid. So when I read Panchasila, that was great, because I had already figured out there was really important insight from the traditions in Panchasila 1, but my education was in Greek humanism. So when I went to college and I read that, I thought, well, that is a whole philosophy that provides the reasons why these other ones are all connected. Because I could see that they were connected, but their doctrines were different. So then the Greeks came up with a theory that actually explained, oh, okay, that's the way to define what they have in common. So I was going kind of fast last time. So I want to slow down, and I want you to think about this, because they're all about a way of life. So Aristotle says the most basic virtues, the most basic instincts we have, because we have a biological foundation in our psyche, right? We evolved from being a kind of animal to being a unique kind of spiritual creature. So we still have those instincts back by your brain stem. But if you want to be fully human and the way we were meant to be, which is to honor God or the universe. I always want to say not just God, but the universe, because Hindus would say, Brahma, the universe, Buddhists, it's all very generic. Aristotle has a view of God, and Plato also has, they accept the premise that there is one underlying force that is the reason things make sense. And the reason there are patterns is because everything has an underlying ordering force. And so the different traditions call them different things, but it gets translated God. So I can use, if I use it, you have to think, okay, so there's Islam and Christianity and Judaism. They're monotheistic, but Hinduism and Buddhism, Taoism, the tribal religions, they too have this ultimate force, and we have to keep it generic, because what really matters is that they all came up with this way of life that is very profound, and we should never let anything divide us on our ultimate goal, on our basic foundation, and on the way we treat each other, and on the way we have to develop a global civilization where we get along, or we're all going to destroy ourselves, because we are on the brink of self-destruction, and we shouldn't be arguing about trivial things. And so on the one hand, Panchasila and the stuff that I do is just one part of this creating of a global civilization where people, not only do they get along, but they know why they get along. They know that we are fundamentally alike, and they know that we have the same way of life that we need to choose in order, both as individuals, in a family, in a society, in a nation, and in an international. It has the same foundation. So this is what Mr. Marif, Dr. Marif, he wanted to develop a system of education for students at Muhammadiyah kinds of institutions. But he said there's nothing in Islamic theology that contradicts Panchasila. So what I think is that I want Indonesians to do all the Muslim theology. Like, I don't really want to go there because you know it and I don't. But I can link it to Panchasila, and I can link it to the Greeks. And that's what I think Mr. Marif would want. But there's a confirmation of this. It's very amazing, because during COVID, I decided every weekend I would read a 350-page book to try and figure out what's been happening in the world and what's been happening in my country. But all these people that aren't talking to each other, they all say, well, ultimately what I'm saying comes down to Aristotle's view of flourishing. And I was like, okay. So now I can take all this stuff. It's neuroscience and the arts. It's neuroscience and this and that. So the first book I read on neuroscience, the guy thinks he's really got something brand new. And I wrote a book and said, no, the Greeks understood that. So I can tie recent discoveries in psychology, which is coming out of neuroscience. I can tie that to the Greeks. I can tie that to systems thinking. And then you can tie it to Panchasila, and you can tie it to Islam. Another thing I'm finding out is this wonderful history after, let's see, Plato and then Aristotle, and he taught Alexander, and Alexander's spread Greek culture into the Roman Empire, and then Justinian shut down the schools, and so a lot of Greeks went to Persia, and then in that same area, the people in Arabia, then Muhammad arrived, and then so they ended up being Muslims, but they had all this Greek culture, and they developed it more. They added to it. They made it more sophisticated. And then it came up through southern Spain. And so everything I learned as the Renaissance and blah, blah, rebirth, nobody taught me. There was a whole chapter in there on Islamic culture and the Muslim Aristotelians. So now I know that. And you might know it better than me, but I am going to include a little bit of that because I think it's so important, and because I don't know, nobody my age ever got that information. And I don't know at what point it started to be really integrated into graduate schools. I really don't know. But anyway, that'll be part of it. And that's another confirmation that we're all heading in the same place. We all start from the same place, and we're all heading in the same place. And it's especially there, some days, some days we can get discouraged because of environmental destruction, because of all the wars going on. But if you give up, it'll be worse. That's a guarantee, right? And so I just think you ought to step up and say, we have a contribution to make, and just keep working on that contribution and not worry. You cannot worry about the consequences. You can't worry if anybody will pick it up, if anybody, because everyone who's been doing the kind of work I do and you do, they've never known if it's going to get passed on. And here it is. It's gotten passed on for 2,500 years. So it has survived, and we have to keep it alive. And then, like, shout it out wherever you can. That's why I'm happy to teach this class. Anyway, so that's an important context. Now I'm going to go back to those two virtues. So the list of virtues starts out with these basic drives, but then over an evolutionary period, long period, we got more and more complex. And every time the societies became more complex, there emerged a pattern in certain types of relationships we had and types of decisions that we had to make. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to stop and make somebody come up with an example. Somebody has to, maybe two people have to give some examples so that I don't just talk the whole time. So let me start with this here. So here's I don't remember which one I was on, but the idea is we're creatures of culture. We have these drives. We can exercise them too much or too little, or in the middle ground. We have to do it for the right reason in the right way. And so with eating, it's pretty obvious. You don't eat too much or too little. You have to eat the right amount. You have to eat your protein and your vegetables and all that. You shouldn't eat for emotional reasons. You shouldn't eat too fast. All these things. I mean, there's lots of science about how we're supposed to eat, because we have to teach ourselves how to eat. Unlike other animals, you don't have to teach what a bird, not to become obese or something. They somehow know what to eat, and they don't eat too much and they don't eat too little, but we have to think about everything. So, and also some people are impulsive. And so the life of the mind, wisdom requires self-control. And then it should be that you take pleasure in it also. You like being self-controlled because your body chemistry functions a lot better. So if you're morally weak, your desires are wrong. Well, if you're self-indulgent, you don't know anything about how to eat. And the majority of Americans do not know that the food they're eating is making them sick. It's rewiring their bodies in a way that's going to make them obese and give them diabetes type 2 and heart disease. And it's very bad. And they don't know that because advertisers don't want them to know that. And most people just want to, it tastes good and their friends all eat this food. And so they do it, but that's a big mistake. Some people, they know what they should eat, but they don't want to. And so they indulge themselves and they regret it. Some people are morally strong, but they're always fighting with themselves inside. And then some people do the right thing. Okay. So courage is the other one. Well, let me just go back here. Let's just stop. Now, what about it? What is it about eating? Does everybody understand that when you're deciding what to eat, you have to make some decisions, right? How many of you would really rather eat more than you need?
Me?
How many of you would undereat? You don't eat enough.
Me? May I mention? Moderator, may I say something?
Sure.
Yes, please.
I will get permission from our moderator, right?
Yes, please. You may.
May, thank you. For me, we do not eat too much. In the morning, I just drink some water, not coffee, not tea, and then apple, mango, that's enough. Lunch, I eat some rice. And then dinner, no, only some water, and then like apple, bananas, like that. So I do not need it a lot. And then some of my money, I buy some rice or anything to give our neighbors, because in Islam, our neighbors is like our brothers and sisters. So in the short time, in 2 weeks, we will fasting, Ramadan, one month, in order to get a lesson, put yourself another people, another people shoes, I mean. So like you, I like you very much because you are very wise. You are very wise, and then you want to be with us, sharing knowledge. That's it. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, so I think all the students understand, right, what it means to have that virtue and that Muhammad developed that virtue. Okay, so that's one. The next one is courage. And whoops, sorry. This is that's for next time. I'm working out Panchasila number 1, the different views of God. So let me see. Oh, I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So the second one is courage and fear. So that's the other big drive that we have is fear. And so I think I was describing to you that Americans are very fearful. It's amazing. I don't think people in the rest of the world know how much fear drives us. And part of that is because we don't trust our neighbors. And part of that is we don't relate to them enough, right? So it's really important to develop community, to get to know your neighbors, to help each other out. I think when you get too much money as a country and people don't depend on each other as much anymore, you have a breakdown in community, and that's a big problem. So the thing that worries me is that people in developing countries are trying to imitate the USA. I hope they're not, you know? I mean, but sometimes my students in Indonesia, really, some of them do kind of worship the USA, and I just want to tell them, please, don't do that. You don't know. But when people do help each other out, and again, that's Muhammad, but that's also Jesus, and that's Buddha, and that's all of the wisdom traditions. Is very important to know how to be afraid or not to be afraid. So all of those icons, they didn't fear death because, you know, it's not rational. It's not wise. We all die. It's part of the process, the natural process. We shouldn't fear pain. We should just, you know, accept it, find out the cause, figure out if your body is working through the problem, and then don't take a pain pill unless, you know, you really need it. And so modern medicine is encouraging people to not to have any courage, to be afraid of any kind of physical pain or aging or death and or illness. Just find out the cause of the illness, try to keep yourself healthy. But again, people in my country make a lot of money by convincing people that they should be afraid of pain and they shouldn't put up with it, because then they'll make money off of them. So I want you to keep that in mind, because after this, I'll just talk about courage a little bit, and then there's the other cultural courage. So there's just physical courage with your body. Then there's cultural courage. You're afraid you're not going to succeed in the economic system. You can't get a job. Again, you can be way too afraid or not afraid enough. Most students that are in college are working hard. They have natural ability, they have motivation, and they have opportunity. So they're going to do fine, and they shouldn't be afraid. But people are also afraid of their social status, whether they lose their friends or they lose respect or they get isolated. So this is because we are these social beings. And so sometimes, and this is why who your friends are so important, because if you act virtuously and your friends all do and they support each other, then as long as you're virtuous, you'll have friends. And if somebody doesn't like you because you're virtuous, you shouldn't want to be friends with them. So my grandson, of course, he's a teenager now, and you always want to tell him, you know, if you stand up for something you believe in, if some people mock you out or they don't want to be friends, you don't want to be friends with them anyway, you know, just let it go. So that gets worse, you know, when people like Jesus and Socrates and Muhammad, I mean, when they stood up for what's right, there were people that hated them for it and tried to kill them and all that. So you do have to remember that, yes, you need friends, but if you're a good person, eventually you will attract good people to you, and you'll inspire each other. So you can't just worry, in general about not having friends. You just have to find the right people. And then people fear loss of status. Well, what really matters is why you lost your status. Was it because you did the right thing? And then you can't worry about it. That's what Socrates said, and every, all these figures. And then being isolated. Well, if it's for the right reason, then you can't worry about it. If somebody is trying to indicate to you that you are rude or arrogant or something like that, you should self-correct, and become better. But you can have a whole culture where everybody approves of everybody and they're wrong, because they're all united under their desire to get elected no matter what, to get power no matter what, to get money, and that you're willing to be wicked in order to achieve your goals. So you shouldn't just worry about having friends. You should just worry about finding good people and inspiring each other. So you can be too afraid, not too afraid enough. Okay. So those are all the different types of courage. So I want to stop again. I guess one more thing is that political campaigns in my country, I don't know about your country, but they appeal, some of the candidates appeal to fear, and they appeal to stereotypes, and people are afraid of the other, right? The other political party, the other ethnicity, the other person of a different religious tradition, the other whatever. And again, Panchasila is telling you we're all alike. But politicians do try to use fear based on ignorance, based on the inability to empathize and bond with other people as people, to manipulate you, get your vote, and then take over power and use it to help their friends. So courage is really important, and it gets triggered quite easily. Pleasure and courage can get triggered pretty easily because they're so instinctual. All right, so I want to stop there. Does anybody want to comment on that? On examples of how in Indonesia, do you think fear is causing people to be divided in unnecessary ways? Go ahead.
Okay. Moderator.
Okay, to Actually Gosali, please.
Yes. Thank you. May I have a comment or give a question?
Brother Ghazali,
Yeah.
if you do not mind, let our moderator comment first. Let our moderator comment and then question and answers, right? If you
Okay.
don't mind, because we
Okay,
need
okay.
our
Thank you.
moderator. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Prof. Marta, do you still have a lecture, or because later we will have the question session?
Oh,
We
okay.
can keep
Okay.
it first. Yeah, we can keep it first.
Okay, I just don't know if the students are actually processing the material, just talk and talk.
Right.
But I can go through.
We still have
What?
7 minutes for this lecture, and then after that we will have the question answer session.
Okay, all right. So the next one, okay, I'm gonna go faster because I'm not getting, I think I'm kind of repeating from last time. Greed is very important because greed is driving a lot of what's going on in the international economic community. And Aristotle says greed is the worst political evil. It will destroy political entities. It will destroy nations. and it will destroy the relationships between nations. And that is exactly what's going on. And so that's an important reason to read the Greeks and for everyone around the world. They could be secular humanists or they could be any religious tradition. They need to call out the greed and how wicked it is. All right, so the next one is generosity. This is an important virtue for communities, just like Abu Ale said. He's generous with his, just constant generosity. You support each other at a very local level and then social, national. And we have to develop healthier relationships with each other at every level, or we're going to self-destruct. And this is what's being discovered in neuroscience, that actually the groups of people that work together are the ones that actually survive. It's not that during the Enlightenment, there was this view, survival of the fittest, that you have to fight in order for the best guy to win. That is not what neuroscience is saying. It's saying the opposite. It was cooperation. We're wired to cooperate, not to compete. Again, in my country, there are a lot of people who believe greed is good, and this is not the way to go. Okay, so that's important. When people don't have trust, okay, generosity establishes trust and goodwill. You get to know the people that you share time or money or food with, and then you trust each other. Everybody knows they want each other to succeed. So if you don't trust, then these friendship bonds are broken. And then the laws, all the laws do is prevent people from harming each other. But you can't survive that way. To flourish, you have to have lots of social networks, and you have to have trust and goodwill. Okay, you have to also try to develop your skills. You find out what you're good at, and then you find out what your society, what sort of degree or what sort of training you need to get the certificate to actually exercise that profession. And then you always use this knowledge or skill that you have for the benefit of the people who need it. And that's very important, that everybody tries to figure out what they're good at and develops themselves to this highest level, more intellectually, but then social and emotional. They use it to help other people. So there shouldn't be a split between your intellectual virtues, your skills, and your moral character. Rational honor is people who go above and beyond what is expected of them in any kind of relationship. And then other people honor them for that. So societies should honor that. And too often, all over the world, we're honoring celebrities, people who look good, so that pleasure, when you look at them, it's pleasure. We're honoring sports heroes. We're honoring people, whether or not they are competitive and adversarial or cooperative and communal. Some sports athletes are, generous and kind, but other ones are competitive and kind of wicked. And we don't, in my country, it's whether you have the skill to win, and that is not going to make for a good community. Rational anger. Okay, so it's okay to be angry at certain people in certain situations, but most of the time people get too angry, and then they make somebody else angry, and they get angry back, and it's a spiral down. So most of the time you should resist being angry and just ask a question or find a way to resolve an issue quickly so you don't get angry. But you can't, sometimes you really need to, because somebody needs to be told what they're doing is inappropriate. Sociability, you put up with minor injustices. This is constant social emotional development, day in and day out. The moral virtues, says Aristotle, are practiced by doing them. And because we live all the time, we're either becoming more virtuous or more wicked. There's no such thing as just staying in place, because you're always doing something, and it either does fit one of the virtues or it fits with one of the vices. And so you're always morally accountable. Yeah, there's no way to develop yourself apart from your relationships to other people. That's how we're human, through our relationship. And then our reflections on our behavior. But okay, so we have these friendships, and the world's religious traditions were set up to create these social bonds based on people exercising the virtues. And that's why they're very powerful in the development of a virtuous global civilization, but that's why they also can get corrupted so easily, because we do need to develop those relationships. And when they break down, some politician or some religious leader who really cares more about power than about truth can take advantage of it. Self-knowledge. Okay. Is that enough?
We already have 40 minutes of the lecture, and maybe we can discuss more on the question and answer session. Is that okay? Or do you have...
Actually, the self-knowledge is the last personal and social virtue, and that's it. And then after that, for next time, I'll do the political virtues. So,
okay, you may continue.
no, the personal and social virtues are the ones with people you know, right? And then the ones for next time are political, when you're thinking about making laws, that you have to think about people you don't know. So those are the political virtues. So it's a good time to stop. It's a great time to stop.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Martha. Now the time is for question and answer session. There will be three questions and questions from the participant. And I would like to invite Aktobi Gozali for the first one. Aktobi Gozali, time is yours.
Your microphone, Gozali, Brother Gozali, your microphone.
Okay, thank you, moderator, and of course, thank you for Professor Martha Beck, who gave us very good and emphasized presentation about this in this morning. First, I want to have a comment about all you presented to us here. I get the ideas of of your presentation is that we have to live in moderation, yeah, in life, moderation in eating, in to fulfill our needs, yeah, basic need, or in our attitude, yeah, our attitude. So this is relate to Islamic teaching too, because in Islamic teaching we have to be a moderates, not the extreme way in life, eating too much, and then we angry, yeah, greedy, and we have to avoid such thing, yeah, in Islamic teaching, even though not everyone realize or applicate in their living, yeah. But Islamic teaching itself teach the companion, his companion, to be in moderation. This is my comment first, and then I have a question. Maybe I don't know. Is it relate to your content or not? But I want to ask about humanism. From your view about humanism. As an American, of course, Prof. Beck Martha Beck now deeply or now about humanism, especially as an American. My question is, I mean yourself, yeah. How about is the same humanism on the view of American or modern society or postmodern about humanism itself?
Yeah.
Do they have a same view about humanism? This is the
No,
first. Okay.
not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. Can you explain the difference between American or modern society views or see the humanism or postmodern like as we live in the postmodern era? Thank you.
Yeah, this is a big deal. Okay, so let's see. In the modern era, there are two main pillars. Okay, it was scientific revolution, and then that was going to be applied to culture using the social sciences. All right. And the assumption was nature is now just inert matter. You've pulled it away from the biosphere, from any organic point of view, and all you study is the space-time motion. You detach it from its natural context, and you make it into material. And Bacon said, this is overt. I'm not interpreting. This was the mission statement. The purpose of scientific knowledge is to find out about nature in order to exploit it, in order to change it for human material well-being. So now we would say you re-engineer nature, right? And obviously we have to stop. Does that make sense? I mean, we're just gone way too far and we're destroying the biosphere. So systems thinking says we have to have an organic view. We have to go back to biology, ecology as the foundational science, not mechanistic physics, not Newtonian physics. Okay, so that's number one. Do we have to switch the paradigm? But the switch is also exactly what ancient traditions did. They all respected the natural world, right? They all really, a huge vice was to overstep your bounds, to not be grateful for the world, the creation, right? So submission, you could say submission to the truth, to the fact that we are in this broader context. That's number one. The sciences were, I would say, corrupted into just believing in exploitation, plus that happiness is materialism. Happiness is when we can have a materialistically defined better life. That's all that science can do. Okay. Okay. Then the second pillar was social science. So we're going to study human behavior and we're going to find out if we negatively reinforce a behavior, people will stop. Or if we positively reinforce, then they'll do it or they'll continue, just like an animal. So you train people just like animals. And the belief was we can make people good just through conditioning. That is not true. Okay, I mean, they really believed we could get rid of those instinctual drives because the only reason people were thrown back to them was because the church threatened them and made them feel afraid, and also gave them this vision of heaven with all these virgins and all that. So the church was aggravating pleasure and fear. And if we just eliminate religion and just have our social science techniques and conditioning system, we can actually condition people to be good. And that has obviously failed because most of those conditioning techniques now are being used. The people who go to school and get the technique, they're hired by corporations to make advertising to manipulate people into buying all sorts of junk they don't need, to manipulate people into thinking they're not pretty enough, they're not rich enough, they're not powerful enough, and destroying the earth and destroying relationships. And then the other money, the other people skilled in this are also paid by military, especially in my country, because you're afraid, right? You have to protect yourself against the enemy, which you don't even know, and they haven't done anything to hurt you. But so those skills that were originally believed to be able to make people good are now making people worse, more greedy and more afraid. And still people still believe in the Enlightenment rather than wisdom. The wisdom traditions show you have to habituate children from when they're little to get along with each other. And that is actually now, finally, somebody's doing research, scientific type of research, to show that cooperation is the best survival instinct. Cooperation is what makes our brains work better. And what we're actually doing is destroying our bodies, destroying our brains, making ourselves mentally ill, and somebody's making money off of that. So modern humanism was based on those modern assumptions, and then postmodern criticized those assumptions because they weren't really objective, but they just said that everything is socially constructed. So that's just as bad or worse. And neither one of them, they're both based on nature is just silly putty and people are just conditioned either by language but they both throw out natural roots, and we've got to get back. Ironically, if we go back to religion, we go back to our natural roots. And does that make sense to you? I mean, that is really important.
Very, very makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It makes sense.
All right. Does that answer your question, Pak Aktobi Ghazali?
Yeah, thank you very much for the answer. I think for me, it's enough first. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we continue to the next question, I would like to say welcome to Pak Muhammad Saleh Made. Yeah, he is one of the director of this meeting, and also he's studying in America in Harvard University. Welcome. All
I
right.
know Saleh. Saleh is my friend.
All right. All right, let's get back to our session. The second question, I see Pak Abu Ali raise his hand for him, please. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Comment and one question. Welcome to my senior, yeah, Brother Saleh. He is my senior. My comment, as long as I know, people, educated people, and then common people. We all right now educated people. So you should be wise to see educated people or common people. And then a way of life in Al-Quran teaches us to know each other. I to know you, you to know me. Takes time, right? So one meeting is not enough to know each other. In order to be together, we are different. We are different, but we can be together. If we know each other, we understand each other, like you, yeah. Gandhi says, I got a lesson from Gandhi. Gandhi said like this: in my mind, Muhammad. In my mind, in the same time, Jesus. In my mind, many role models, Socrates. So it means Gandhi is a wise person.
That's right.
My question is, a modern person, like right now, modern person, in your opinion, could you please give us a modern person in your personal opinion? We want to be a modern people, right? Like you. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think they're in the news that much because the news, in some senses, is supposed to be a watchdog and it's supposed to tell you what to watch out for. And so it will talk more about people that are threatening us, undermining us. There's also the fact that I think there are some political actors that are good people, but in order to get elected and to get their political party elected, they have to compromise a lot. And so they don't come across as good people. They wouldn't even think that, well, what they're doing is what they choose is what they think is what's best in the situation. That's practical wisdom. So somebody can have a really good character and be forced into a situation where none of the choices are choices they would otherwise make. And yet they have to. And so all the news will cover is the choice they made. It won't cover why, and it won't cover their overall character. And so that's why if you want to figure out how to vote, you really have to find out who these people are. Like, why did they get into it? But I think I know political actors who want a middle class. They want statecraft. They're trying to be statespersons, but you have to dig in order to find that. And then the decisions, the choices sometimes are just, all of them are horrible. But I doesn't mean I'm not going to vote for them, because the reason some of the political actors, the reason there are such bad choices is because the other people really are putting them into a spot. So in my country, some political actors really do not want a middle class. They really just want to get donations and then be the puppets, the employees of the rich. But others really don't. So there's that. Then there's the other thing where there are a lot of really good people out there. It's like there's a lot of them in environmental activism. There's a lot of grassroots things. There's a lot of local things. One of the people I work with who teaches political philosophy, he's also a big leader in the town. The person in art, I mean, you almost have to know them individually to know that if you knew their life story, they really have made good choices all the way along, because everybody has to cultivate virtue according to their own capacities, according to their own opportunities. They have obstacles. You know, everybody has a story. And I do think a lot of people, here's the main thing. You never know anybody according to the behavior that you see. A person is their whole life story. And so, you know, it's really important that everybody's life story is pretty decent. But that's why it seems to me it's better just to teach this model than to try and collect data about, you know, what's your opinion on this particular law? That doesn't tell you anything about a person. It doesn't tell you anything about a culture. I also think really good people can disagree on some things. And then, but if they keep talking and they keep giving good reasons, then you can trust them. And you can trust that they have goodwill. And so you can think, well, maybe they'll change their mind, but maybe I'll change my mind, you know? And maybe this time I think I'm right, but another time, literally, I'm going to ask them what they think about something because I know they have a reasonable point of view. So does that answer your question? There just is a lot.
Yes. You answer my
Okay.
question. Yes, we are not always right, right?
Well, the other thing that bothers me is the way Indonesia gets reported in the press. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what really goes on, what the culture's like. They don't even read Pancasila. They don't know anything. They just know, well, they've got this political thing going and they've got a lot of the same problems that everybody else has. Well, yeah, okay, fine. But what's the character of the people? What's the culture? What's, you know, so you have to dig, you know, and life is too short for anyone to dig very much, but you know, I have this chance to work with Indonesians, so I'm happy. I think India also has a very complex, you know, history, and it's very interesting. But, you know, if you read about Mr. Modi, I mean, you know, the Hindus and the Muslims, my gosh, you know, and I'm sure that if you lived in India and you knew, you would think that is not, you know, who we are. But the situation right now is so very fraught for a lot of different reasons. And it's really hard to know which politicians actually are doing what's best in the circumstances, but it sure doesn't look very good. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you,
Alright.
moderator.
All right. Okay, that's for the first session for question and answer. We will move to the second session. If anyone has other questions, you may raise your hand or activate your speaker or write down the comments on the chat. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
I could say something about Saleh when I stayed at his house.
Sure.
If there aren't any more questions, but it's about students. I really would like, you know, people to ask questions. I'll tell this story in hopes that maybe somebody will, but So I stayed with Saleh and we had wonderful conversations. And I always like to ask people like, who are you? What's your story? And Saleh has a wonderful story. But I also had these students, they're writing their master's thesis, okay? And lots of times, you know, one is working on Sufi mysticism, and I'm fascinated by that. And I could say, oh, I would love to know more about that. And then I would ask, but I always ask, why are you doing this? You know, like you are a smart person, you are motivated, and why did you choose to do this rather than, you know, go into business or, you know, there's a million other things. So why is this so important to you? And that's what I like to know, right? And that's Aristotle, and that's the wisdom traditions, is you have an idea of the good, the highest good, God. You have the idea of your own good. You want to live for the, you know, glory of God. You want to show God you know, that you're living out the plan to develop yourself as a person. And then you figured out that of all the choices you could have, this is the best way, and that's why you're here, right? I think that's the only way that you know who a person is, but I also think that's the way you should live your life, right? What's my idea of the good? And Saleh, definitely, you can trust me. That's him.
Saleh is a caring person.
And he's had a lot of ups and downs, and I don't think he ever made a bad choice. He just hesitated maybe sometimes, but his wife is also really special. She keeps encouraging. They're in it together. Like they have a similar idea of the good, and they're living out that idea, and it's very beautiful. So,
My moderator, could you please invite Saleh to talk for a minute?
All right. To Pak Muhammad Saleh Made, please, time is yours. Can
Thank you. Actually, I don't want to disturb your your meetings or your forums. Once again, I'm very happy when I know that this class is led by our professor, our vice professor, Professor Martha Beck. So I know that she's a really professor. She is a good professor, and you are lucky because of you may have a class with her, then you don't need to pay. So that's the point. Should I tell you all that? Please join focusly, be active. Then imagine yourself. You have to have a big dream to come here to Professor Martha Beck's country. So who knows? Tomorrow, after tomorrow, next year, you may come in here. So, but how to reach the United States? Of course, you have to prepare yourself right now. And this is a good opportunity. You are here in this Zooming. So be active, please. Be focused, please. Then manage your time to join this class. Yeah, from first meeting until the end of meeting. It's once again, see, it's I know that some of us Indonesian student, Indonesian scholars say that, yeah, maybe we are different ideals, we are different dream. So Yeah, it doesn't matter. But once again, especially here, I see we are more than 30 students. So yeah, let's study together. Let's try our our listening, our um to have a good knowledge from or gratis knowledge from our professor. And the second is I like to say that yeah, to have American professor is not so easy. Yeah, it's not so easy. Then having American professor is one step you got it. Yeah, you are lucky right now because now you are in the first step, the first level. Yeah, step by step, you might know today Professor Marta or Professor Beck, maybe tomorrow another or the other American professor. So once again, that's we are happy here, and I'd like to say, from my defense, that thank you very much for Professor Marta Beck to lead us, to teach us. Once again, actually, I always what is say. Sometimes I miss this class. For example, right now, Indonesians gather in my house, so your Indonesian culture, I cannot and I couldn't say that, hey, get out from my house, I have class. Or yeah, please um let's close our our what you say, our gathering here because I have class with Professor Beck, for example. But once again, it's our culture is and so okay. Um Once again, that's teman-teman optimis lah. Dan you also we are lucky because of Professor Marta have known Indonesian culture, Indonesian religion, yeah, Indonesian religious, Pancasila, so many things about our country already understood by Professor Mata. So once again, this is a good opportunity for us to yeah to force ourselves, to focus ourselves to learn about American culture or modern culture, like this evening here in Indonesia, this of course in the morning from Professor Beck. Once again, thank you for good opportunity. I miss you, Professor Beck. Yeah, this is your house.
I have to say that Saleh told me, his life story, and he's very courageous. And he's more courageous than I am, I think.
Every
And
time,
he's very
Professor Beck,
ambitious.
if you have time, you may come into Hotpot. You may stay in my house. You have a particular room in my house. So we call Professor room. So means you will be there. Then today I wrote I write today about Nasaruddin Umar visit. Then my article will be published in Hotpot News. So maybe the
Good.
next time I'll send to Erica, your daughter. Teman-teman, Profesor Beck ini punya putri di sini namanya Erica. Erica is a journalist. Ya, jadi wartawan, dia punya putri. Dan ya someday I try to write a short article, a short news about about something. Then I'll email to
Erica.
Pastor Beck, and hopefully Erica could publish in Erica's Erica's newspaper or whatever.
So
That's okay,
Erica,
thank you. Yep.
yeah, so Eric, my children are worried about greed in America and a shrinking middle class. And they all went to the public schools that had students from all different socioeconomic brackets and different race, ethnicity, culture, and they all learned to get along and they all developed their talents. And so that's what my children did in their careers. So Erica, she started out in business in a corporation because she wanted them to go green. She wanted them to have fair trade. She thought she could try to make a difference, but after a year and a half, she quit. So she likes art. Just Indonesians like art, right? All sorts of indigenous art, Javanese, Sudanese. I like that so much. And then she was in arts journalism. And she wrote for the Wall Street Journal for a while, but that's corrupted by greed. So she writes for a nonprofit, national public site about corporations, and now she writes for Connecticut. But it's, you know how the news is getting corrupted by greed. At least in the US, Fox News, it's terrible. So she writes economic issues, nonprofit, which means she can report on anything and she doesn't have to worry about the sponsors. But she got to know about Hartford because we have a terrible problem with our healthcare system. And so small organizations like the Hartford International University has a hard time paying for healthcare. And so she was going there to interview, and she said, my mother would really like this place. And she likes it. She looked at the journal and stuff with me, and yeah, she likes all sorts of humanities kinds of things. So, but I thought I'd mention that because it's the same old problem of generosity. And Indonesia suffers from colonialism because it was motivated by greed and by the belief that exploiting natural resources is good without any limit. And so, and also the belief in their own superiority because they have science and you don't. And so that's why they kept telling you their culture was better, their God was better. So those, and then they sell it back to you as enlightenment. And then when I see that Indonesian, the best and the brightest get trained to think like this, it's so upsetting. Like that's the way of thinking that justified colonialism, and now you're trying to become like them. Don't do it. It's terrible. Do you understand that? How awful that is? Smart people in your country get alienated from your own country and they just want to be like Westerners, and they ignore the exploitation of resources. And I don't know, it has to stop.
Moderator, I like to
My kind moderator, my comment.
sebentar Pak Ali, sebentar. I like to tell you all that Professor Beck is is a diligent professor. Then of course, whatever we do usually, and hopefully, especially this class, I hope Professor Beck can write it in article, then we publish in Istiqlal Magazine. Jadi teman-teman nanti bebas berkomentar, bertanya. Biasanya dinamika dalam pertemuan begini, sorry I speak bahasa, itu Profesor Beck itu bisa menulis dalam bentuk satu, misalnya komentarnya Nur Afifah seperti ini, Aktobi Ghazali seperti ini, Abu Ali seperti ini, dan dia itu bisa menjadikan sebuah satu complete artikel dan artikel yang utuh, dan itu kita nanti publish. So don't worry, because I'm manager in Istiqlal magazine, so every edition we have a Professor Beck articles. So jadi memperkenalkan nanti teman-teman ini, I hope Professor Beck can write a short article, 2 pages about this class. So this also to inspire, to motivate the other Indonesian students. Thank you. Please, Professor Abu Ali, you may.
Okay, thank you very
Oh, yeah.
much, moderator. May I say something, moderator?
Yes, please. Time is
Okay,
yours.
okay. I just keep it simple. Number one, our professor is not only smart, but very kind as well. That's my comment. And then, if you want to go to Jakarta to visit Indonesia, especially Jakarta, ya, Jakarta, you or your daughter, somebody you send, please contact me. Please contact me, ya. Brother Saleh, if you have a guest to visit in Indonesia, especially Jakarta, because Indonesia is big country, right? Jakarta, Lampung, Bandung, near, I will be your servant, your servant. I will be your servant, like that. I wish, the last one, I wish I were with you, Prof, right now, in your country, yeah, not on the Zoom. I wish I were with you in your country. That's all. Thank you very much, moderator.
Thank you. So, we still have time for questions if anyone has question. No? Okay. Okay. Can we end this Abu Rizal Akbar, or do we have
Photo
other?
session, photo session.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Before we end this, the meeting, maybe we can have a photo session together. Please, to all the participants, activate your camera so we can see your beautiful and okay. Okay. Does anyone? Okay, I see only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 9. 9 is activating there. How about the others? No? Okay. Is this enough for us to take a picture? Who will take the picture? Will you take the picture, Kak Abu Rizal Akbar?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for having us, and especially to Professor Beck Martasi. Thank you for the full insights. And I'd like to make a note that you said that you do not have to fear to find friends. Friends will find you. Yeah, if we are good, and then good people will come to us as well. For example, for now I don't have any relation with the education, but because of Abu Rizal Akbar contacted me and then asked me to be a moderator, now I'm meeting to all of you with amazing people here, and such a great opportunity to me. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, and then I think that's, yeah, it's very good, a very insightful meeting. Thank you so much for Mr. Prof. Beck Martasi, and also
Yeah,
Pa.
well, I do want to say that is serious, that human beings are spiritual, and Hinduism, karma, if you put out good karma there, eventually it'll come back, but not always. not immediately. It's just long term. And if you put out bad karma long enough, it will come back. So bad people, crime doesn't pay, you know? Virtue ultimately wins out, and vice is self-destructive in the long run, but there's a lot of stuff in between that happens, and that's just because we're all limited and we're mortal and we're frail. But overall, the universe, you know, will self-correct. And I just think science is starting to say that that's not blind faith. It's blind faith to say that greed is going to make us flourish. That is totally wrong. That greed is good. Nobody should think that and claim it's database at all, because it's not. Anyway, you just get so tired of getting criticized for being anti-science when the science is all there and it always was. But I don't know, people get set in their ways of thinking, right? Okay, well, thanks for having me. We'll do political virtues next time, the virtues of the citizen. You have to learn in a democracy, it's not all about you, and it's not all about the people you know. It's about everyone in the society working together. And it's a different kind of thinking, but you have to have empathy. You have to know your own people. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice
Thank you,
Thank
Brother
you,
Saleh. Thank
moderator.
you, Abu Rizal. Thank you,
Thank you.
our moderator,
Pak Saleh, thank you. Thank you. Pak Abu Rizal.
wise moderator.
Thank
Oke,
you.
silakan
Thank you so
lanjut,
much, Prof.
berlanjut
Thank
organ
you.
Anda
Kak
lanjut
Saleh.
aktivitas, especially Professor Beck. Have a good night.
Dr.
You
Ali
too.
dan
Have
Dr.
a good
Ghazali.
Eh, Oke,
All right.
bagus, bagus, bagus. Good class.
Makasih.
You wanna say?
Makasih Kak Saleh. Makasih.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you,
moderator,
Prof.
wise
Prof.
moderator.
Marta. Ya.
Thank you, Abu Rizal.
Mungkin thank you Dr. Ali. Thank you. Viva, boleh saya dijadikan hostnya lagi biar